Hello, I'm Paul Glumaz, and today is the 23rd of January 2018, and uh, I'm an active participant in the revolution being established by Lyndon LaRouche on a global scale, and this is being brought to you by General Welfare Presents. Well, as a man that Oliver Stone calls a true American, William Benny, who perhaps is the most significant person at NASA, at NSA, to, uh, to to leave the NSA in protest of the uh, fraud of the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and who is very active with veterans, intelligence professionals for sanity. Uh, he, who has just been interviewed by Hannity, has a very important uh, uh, metaphor. Cow chips are flying all over the place. Let me tell you, the cow chips are just flying everywhere. There's more and more cow chips being flung in this drama of emails and text messages and who knows what, and it's all coming down. It's all coming unglued. But you have to understand, you're not dealing in a truthful world. You're dealing in a world of neoliberalism. In the world of neoliberalism, there is no truth. There are only the lies that carry a big stick. And the only thing that matters is if you don't have the courage to stand up to the lie, then it passes for truth. But it's not true. It doesn't pass for truth. It passes for what is accepted. So up until now, it's been accepted. Everything's been accepted, not because it was true, but because nobody had the courage to stand up and question or say otherwise. And our whole life, our whole world, our whole has been controlled that way. Whether it's academia, whether it's the media, whether it's the police state, whatever. It's all, if you question the narrative, the established narrative, then you're uh, then it's your problem. Okay, it's not whether it's true or not. It has nothing to do with truth. It has to do with courage. And so we have now a situation in which uh, all this stuff is coming out, and as it becomes clear with this memo that will probably come out soon, and all the supporting evidence that there was a conspiracy to overthrow the presidency of the United States by the internal organs of the FBI and the Justice Department in collusion with the previous administration, in collusion with the media, in collusion with uh, the presidential candidate who lost, but most of all, under the direction of and impetus of a foreign intelligence agency, the British intelligence agency, and GCHQ. So you see this whole process unfolding, and as you see it unfolding, this is going to mentally break the the whole control. You're going to see people go crazy because if this is true, and of course they know it's true, but if they have to accept it as true, or they have to face up to the fact that they've been lying all this time. This is where people go crazy. This is where neoliberals go crazy. Hell have no fury like a neoliberal challenged for the lies that they are out. There's nothing more dangerous. And so you have three things going on that are very, very crucial in the world right now that all relate back to the unraveling of the power of the world's financial empire, uh, and that is, the first is that last week France uh, actually in the early part of January, Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, went to China And France is now fully committed to working with China in the development of Africa and the promotion and development of nuclear power. The French have a lot of nuclear power capabilities. Um, and most of all, France has announced that they are now participating in and will participate in from here on out in China's Belt and Road Initiative. This is the first European country to do this. This is huge. The second uh, development, similar, is related to Japan. Japan and Russia are increasingly collaborating on economic matters. Japan is also increasingly collaborating with China on the Belt and Road. And so Japan is also moving very much into this new economic development perspective. So you have those two things. These are very big things. These are Japan and France are not small little, players. They're significant players, economically, politically, strategically, and they are now shifted into the Belt and Road of Lyndon LaRouche, which is the Chinese policy, been the Chinese official policy since uh, August of 2013. And so this is completely transformative, and completely transformative. So as a result, um, you have a pushback coming from within the British Empire, centered around McMaster, Mattis, and Mike Pence, the vice president, and centered within the deep state around getting a war going with Russia and China before this process develops. And so Mattis, the defense secretary, unveiled a a national security strategy report, which states the following, if you can imagine this. The principal adversaries of the United States are China and Russia. China number one, Russia number two. The reason that, and these two nations are threatening the United States supremacy in the world. And how are they threatening America's supremacy in the world? Well, through economic means, through economic development. This national security strategy report makes economic development of the third world, of the rest of the world, a enemy action against the United States, against the interests of the United States. This is absolute insanity. This is America's strategic document. Okay? This is what our military and our national security is now premised on, the idea that Russia and China are the enemy. Because are they threatening us militarily? No. There's an economic threat. What's the economic threat? We're going to develop the world. That's how insane neoliberalism is, and also neoconism. They're insane. They're saying that the military of the United States now has to be deployed in a way to prevent the development of the world in order to prevent the increased economic influence of China. This is insane. And the president of the United States probably does not agree with that. But he's surrounded. In the middle of the coup that's being run against him, he's surrounded by this crowd. And these are not the military officials in the field. These are all your think tanks. All your think tanks. They're all crazy, psychotic. They exist to protect the interests of Wall Street. They exist to protect the interests of the City of London. And it's the City of London and Wall Street that feel threatened by the economic development that's coming out of the Belt and Road. And that's why this national security memorandum. That means our military is not there to defend the United States. It's there for one purpose only, and that's to defend Wall Street and the City of London and the European and American oligarchy. And that's all it's there for. It isn't there for anything else. Okay, so this is a very conflicted situation. Now, that is exactly what we're now learning about the Justice Department and the FBI. They talk about a secret society now. They're talking about they had a little secret thing going on off the campus campuses of the FBI, doing all this. All this stuff is being revealed. And on whose behalf are they operating? They're operating on behalf of who? Wall Street. How do we know this? Because the guy that was had to quit got a $500,000 job with Wall Street. Comey was in law enforcement, and then he went to Wall Street, and then he came back to law enforcement. What was he? He was in the board of directors of Hong Kong Shanghai Bank. He was laundering the money. He was on the board of Martin, I think Marietta. I think one of the key defense contractors. I'm not sure about that. Lockheed or one of these. Same with the same kind of thing has been going on with Robert Mueller. Same thing. These high-ranking FBI agents get the $500,000 jobs when they retire. They're completely integrated with Wall Street. That's what they do. They are there to protect Wall Street and the drug traffic as well, which is also connected to Wall Street. That's what they're there for. And so along comes a blip in the road, a bump in the road by the name of Donald Trump, who's not there for them, and they they're getting their orders from Wall Street. They're getting their orders from the British. This is who they own. This is who they take their orders from. This is who they are owned by. The British, Wall Street, the City of London. It's all one thing. It's one apparatus, right? And that's who gives them the order, right? And when they say we, that's what they mean by we. They don't mean the United States. They don't mean the United States of America. They mean we. And Trump isn't we. And so this whole thing is really incredible. This is what you're dealing with. And Wall Street has got its hooks in the Trump administration. There's no way that they wouldn't have their hooks in the Trump administration because, they're in power. And they have this guy Mnuchin from Goldman Sachs, right? Mnuchin. And they have all these people like the Federal Reserve Chairman. And all these people, they're not for any of this stuff. They're not for economic development of the United States. They're for Wall Street. They're for bailing out the system. And meanwhile, they're calculating how they're going to use the military to run the country when the banks go under. The same people are calculating how they're going to use the military to run the country when the banks go under. It's the same crowd, right? They don't want a president to get in the way of that. They don't want a president to come in with Glass-Steagall. They don't want a president to come in with a credit system that like LaRouche has been proposing. They don't want any of that. So this is what we're facing. So we're coming closer to the State of the Union, and we're actually more into the state of hysteria than the State of the Union. I would say that our country's media is going into a deeper state of hysteria. The neoliberals are going to go into a deeper state of hysteria. The Obama-knots are going to go into a deeper state of hysteria. But that doesn't solve our problem. But nonetheless, we're going to have a state of hysteria, a State of the Union in during a period of the state of hysteria. Meanwhile, we have to put forward our plan to rebuild the United States through a Glass-Steagall and a credit system. And we have a couple state legislators I want to mention here in Washington State who understand this. Two of them are stalwart individuals for Glass-Steagall. One of them is Marilyn Chase from Shoreline, and the other is State Senator Marilyn Chase. The other is State Senator Bob Hasegawa. And they have introduced two resolutions for memorialization into the state Senate. SJC 8002, that's for Glass-Steagall, and SJC 8006, which is LaRouche's 4 laws. It doesn't have the word LaRouche in there, but it is the 4 laws. It's the credit system, it's the Glass-Steagall, and it's the American Recovery Memorialization Policy. So these two guys are putting this in the state legislature. The hearings are going to be in Olympia. The schedule, it could change, but the scheduled hearing is the 30th of January. which I do believe is a Tuesday. um, so a week from today, we are expecting to go down to Olympia and testify at these hearings. And maybe it's yeah, I think that yeah, the 27th is this Saturday. So 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 this is part of our effort here locally, and these two individuals are not your typical go along get along type people. Democratic Party officials have told me privately that they consider these two characters to be a thorn, a pain in the butt to them, because they're not going along to get along. And I encourage people to come to the hearings and participate in the discussion on these on Glass-Steagall and LaRouche's four laws. And so, in that context, is we have these situations which are getting very hot, like in the Middle East, like in Syria. You have the Turks now getting involved with the Kurds. The U.S. is getting involved, already involved with the Kurds. So the Turks are now potentially going into a military actions um, against the United States, although that's not clear yet. But the way to understand the situation is from the standpoint of the false alert that took place in Hawaii. That was not a false alert. That is the kind of thing that can happen to get us into a war. Uh, the president only has 5 to 10 minutes to respond to an alert, whether to launch an all-out nuclear strike or not. Little time for that kind of decision to be made. And there's enough crazy people who who see the end of their power that they're willing to launch, they're willing to get a nuclear war going. And that's what this whole insane uh, uh, nuclear this whole insane national security strategy document is really bad, because it 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 says that Russia and China are the enemies, but that you cannot stop the economic development of the world at this point just by using terrorism or drug trafficking or military threats. It's too far gone. You're going to have to use nuclear weapons if you're going to stop it. So they're implying that U.S. policy, a prompt global strike, which is a first strike policy, a war-winning nuclear strike policy, that the U.S. is actually has a doctrine now of nuking Russia and China. That is now our official doctrine, to nuke China and Russia. And we're setting up the ABM systems and Korea, and we're setting up the systems in Korea and South Korea and Japan, and we're setting up the system ABM system in Poland and Romania, so that we can win a nuclear war. We can pinpoint an accurate pinpoint their targets, and also deal with their second strike. And this is understood, which is why China and Russia have been mobilizing their populations to prepare for nuclear war, because they know the insanity of these neoliberals. They're insane. And if they can't get their way and the world's changing and they're going to have to accept a different world, then they're liable to just say, screw it. We'll wipe everybody out. So that's the problem that we have right now. We're dealing with a suicide situation, a kind of a suicide potential in the neoliberal elite and in the oligarchical elite. Though I believe there is a split in the oligarchy. A large portion of them have already decided that to go along with the Belt and Road and fight for another day. But a lot of them, this is an intolerable situation for them, and they're looking at launching a nuclear war. And while Trump would probably not be the best candidate for that, they can create a circumstance where an accident or a false alarm or any number of things could be done to to trigger a nuclear war, because Trump does not have full control over his government, and he has a person waiting in the wings to replace him by the name of Michael Pence, and he has people like McMaster's in national security who are totally opposed to the United States working with China. And he has people at the Treasury who are also similarly engaged. So this is going to be a really bumpy month. Next month is going to be another big bumpy month, and so you can expect some difficult times. So on that note, perhaps the most important thing is that we have been living in a dark age for a long time. Our country has been going down the tubes for a long time. Our infrastructure has been declining for about 50 years. You know, there's no way the United States can do anything to reverse the decline, the attrition, the degeneration without LaRouche's four laws, without changing the direction altogether, without putting the banks into a Glass-Steagall structure, without creating a public credit structure. Now, one of the New York congressmen is calling for an infrastructure bank. Of course, it's not yet clear how that's going to work, but such a bank, if it's done as a credit system, the way the Reconstruction Finance Corporation was run under FDR, it could be the beginning of a credit system. But it's got a lot of problems there. His proposal has a lot of problems. So we're coming into this situation now. Here in Seattle, it's very difficult to sense what's going on in the rest of the country because we're very insulated by a financial bubble. We have this financial bubble around the IT sector, around Microsoft and Jeff Bezos and Amazon and etc. We have thousands of people coming into Seattle every week, and we have massive construction going on of apartment buildings and businesses. And skyscrapers. We have had massive construction going on. So there's a certain sense of growth here that does not exist in the Midwest. It does not exist in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, in these places. It's totally different there. So the political situation there is totally different. It is pandemonium. These are Democratic states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and places like Ohio. These are Democratic states that are a lot of these areas went over to Trump. These are Democrats. These are hardcore Democrats. And so what's going on right now is this is where the revolution is really taking place in the United States. It's taking place in the Midwest. Not the South so much, not the Southwest, but it's not California definitely, and not the Northwest, but it's taking place in the heartland and the Rust Belt. And there is a revolution taking place. These people have had it, and they want development, and they want an end to this neoliberal financial system, and this neoliberal environmentalism, and this neoliberal, nobody's really a man or a woman. There's 20 shades of gray in between. They want an end to all of that. They want an end to all. They want real economic development, and this is something the Democrats have not been responding to at all. They are not responding to that at all. They're responding to the psychotic puppets, going after Trump for the shithole comment, which he never made. He never made that comment. It was attributed to him by Dick Durban, who's famous for doing things like that, attributing that people said something which they didn't. But then people say, well, he probably did say it because that's the kind of thing he would say. and then a big storm is created. And this is the kind of thing that is going to go on and on and on and on. This is the psychosis of what you're dealing with. But nonetheless, reality, the truth, does come out in the end, and it is catching up with these insane people, and they are insane, and they're going to get more rabid and more rabid and more rabid, and that's great. I just don't want something like a nuclear war to get going because of it. So I'll end there.